Hey everybody, welcome to So Awkward. It's me, Don, and I'm here to give my thoughts on the film adaptation of Dune, the 1984 production directed by David Lynch. No, I'm just kidding. Sort of. I watched the new film directed by Denis Villeneuve, I don't know what, some French guy. After I watched that, I did rewatch the David Lynch film because I own it and I love it. Also hate it. I feel very similarly about the new film. I loved a lot of it, disliked a lot of it. I thought it was okay. I watched both of them in one night, and I'm about to become the most hated man on the internet when I say this. David Lynch did a better job. Sorry. But just to give you a little bit of my Dune cred, it's my favorite book. I probably reread it more than any other novel. I reread it once every couple of years. I probably reread it 20 times. I get more out of it every time I read it. More that I love, more that I appreciate, and more that I dislike, and I see flaws. But that's a video for another time, but I love it. Here's Dune Messiah. Children of Dune. Heretics of Dune. What's this? God Emperor of Dune. I got a collection of short stories by Frank Herbert. I got E.T., the Book of the Green Planet. Maybe we'll talk about that one someday. That's the sequel to E.T. Yeah, there's a sequel to E.T. And I've read it. It's not very good, but it's interesting. Which is what I would say about both, maybe all three versions of Dune, including the mini-series from the mid-2000s, which I have almost no memory of. I was looking forward to seeing the film because I'm a huge Dune fan, but I'm not the kind of guy, and you can encounter a lot of these guys, especially on the internet, especially if you frequent the Dune Reddit board like I do. And years ago, it's like, we used to talk about the novel, and now all people talk about is the movie, and everybody's so excited for the movie. It's like, I like the novel. And I say, Messiah is readable and pretty good. I like Dune Messiah. After that, they get weird. I'm not going to spoil anything. It's going to be no spoilers. But here's what I'll say. So basically what I was saying, because when I rewatch my videos like this, I realize I never finish a sentence. I never hit a period. Midway through every sentence, I begin a new sentence with a new thought. And I'm not drunk. I don't do drugs. I'm either very, very, very dumb or very, very, very smart. Or neither. I don't care about adaptations of books and comic books that I love. I love all the Marvel movies because they're really well done. But they don't match, the original stories. And I love Dune, and I reread it all the time because I love going into this world and hanging out with these characters again. And so I was looking forward to the movie because it looked neat, and I enjoy the David Lynch movie because it's there's some interesting stuff going on, and it's an interesting movie, and it's fun. But I don't care. I don't really care. It's not going to replace, I'm still going to reread this. In fact, I might reread it. So it's a movie comes out, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't be good. The David Lynch one is dumb and crazy. And there's it's nothing but exposition. It kind of was in the spirit of Herbert, whereas basically, here's my 2-second review. And even though this video is probably going to be 45 minutes long, because I can't finish the sentence. If you love Dune, the novels, you're probably going to enjoy this movie and get a lot out of it because it's visually great, well cast. There's a lot of scenes that are taken straight from the novel, even though almost none of the dialogue is, which is weird because Frank Herbert writes great dialogue. He's a great writer. His dialogue is quotable, eminently quotable. I quote from Dune all the time. I'm a regular Gurney Halleck. Quoting Gurney Halleck. Somewhere a Dune fan is laughing at that one. I think if you love the Dune novels, you'll enjoy this movie. If you've never read Dune, or if you've tried to read it and found it boring, you know who you are. You're not going to enjoy this movie because it's the David Lynch movie. At least it's weird, but every now and again, like a character will like look at the screen and be like, yeah, so here's what's happening. So the Emperor is teaming up with the Harkonnens because they don't like Duke Leto because he has too much power in the Landsraad, which is the collection of imperial houses, which are actually planets, and they over-explain.
I have ordered House Atreides to occupy Arrakis to mine the spice, thus replacing their enemies, the Harkonnens. House Atreides will not refuse because of the tremendous power they think they will gain.
But over-explaining is better than not explaining at all. If you've never read the novel and you watch this movie, let me know what you think down below, because I'm curious. I think you'll hate it. Because it's not a particularly good movie. I've never seen anything by Denis Villeneuve, because all of his movies look boring. And I like boring movies. I like slow-paced. One of my favorite movies that I watch, maybe I watch more than any other movie, is Glenn Ross, which is just people sitting in coffee shops talking. I love movies of people just talking. I love slow-paced, dialogue-heavy movies. That's my favorite kind of movie. I love just watching people talk, as long as it's good, as long as the characters are good. I tried watching his Blade Runner sequel for some reason, because I hate the original Blade Runner, because I hate everything. The original Blade Runner is the most overrated movie ever. It's a cult film, which means most people hate it. There's two kinds of cult films. There's the cult films that not many people have seen, and then there's the cult movies that a lot of people have seen and they all hate, because they're not very good. That's where the original Blade Runner falls. It's just boring. Read the book. The Philip K. Dick novel, Andrew's Dream of Electric Sheep, is way better, and it's so much more thoughtful, and it has so much more depth. They took everything that was interesting from the novel and just got rid of it and just said, hey, maybe, what if Harrison Ford is really an android? Which isn't interesting, because I think the real Harrison Ford is probably an android. So I tried watching the sequel for some reason. I think I made it like a half hour, and I was like, this is boring. So you take the world's most boring director and team him up with Ryan Gosling, and you're gonna have the world's most boring movie. I think I watched it because I like Batista. I like him as a wrestler, I like him as an actor. He's always good. And he was good because he was in the first scene. And I think he died. Spoiler for a movie I didn't finish. So he probably comes back. So it's not really a spoiler because I have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. Anyway, we're talking about Dune. The cast was good. Let's go through the cast. Let's see which film does it better. You've got Paul Atreides, Muad'Dib, the white savior, sort of. And this one is Timothy Chalamet or something like that, some young emo. And in the first film, it was Kyle MacLachlan. I'm going with Kyle MacLachlan. I mean, this kid looks like a kid, so he's got that going for him, whereas like Kyle MacLachlan just looks like a 30-year-old when he was 15. It looks like a 30-year-old now. But he's got like a spark and charisma that this kid just doesn't have. This was just like, they made Paul emo, and maybe he is. There's actually a scene in the beginning and near the start of the film where Paul is in like a graveyard and his hair's in his face, and he's literally wearing like a black trench coat, and he's just like walking, and he should be like vaping. If I was the kind of person who used the words like cringe, I would have described this scene as cringe. It was just, they put him in a black trench coat. There's no trench coats in any Frank Herbert novels. I think 15-year-old girls are going to love this movie, and they're going to fall in love with this kid. In my opinion, I love Dune. I love the story. I love the world building. I love the universe. I love this everything. I love the story and the mythology and the religion and the different factions and everything that's going on. I hate Paul, who's the main character. I love all of these side characters and the supporting characters. This film was directed by somebody who loves Paul, and Paul's his favorite character, and he can't get enough of Paul, and he loves Paul's brooding, and Paul is the most boring character, which makes me not necessarily want to watch the inevitable sequel, although it's not inevitable because I don't know if there will really be a sequel, because I don't think people are going to like this movie. This film is basically the first half of the novel, which is the best part of the novel. The second half of the novel is all Paul all the time. And then we've got Paul's father, Duke Leto. And the original film was Jürgen Prochnow, great German actor. And this one is Oscar Isaac. Both great actors. Interesting actor. He just didn't have that gravitas and intensity that I would think a military and imperial leader would have. Jürgen Prochnow does. Gurney Halleck, oh, this is a tough one. In the first film, it's Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, and he's good. He's always good. In this one, it's Thanos. Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin is way better. He's more interesting. They give him slightly more to do, but neither one really have any screen time to speak of. Josh Brolin has a little more, and he does more with the character, and he's a little more in line with the character from the novel. Then we have Thufir Hawat. If Thufir is your favorite character, you're gonna hate this fucking movie because he's in it for maybe 2 seconds. I don't even think they use the word mentat. I don't think the word mentat is mentioned once. It's certainly not explained who these characters are. So, like, they both suck. And then there is Dr. Yui, who is actually one of my favorite characters from the novel. And if you've seen this movie, you're probably thinking, why would he? In the novel, he is an interesting character who's conflicted, and he has all this he's got an interesting arc and characterization going on. In this movie, he's just like some guy who's in it for like 2 seconds. You know, there's no mention of like the Sook School or Imperial conditioning, and why, like, what he's tormented about is so interesting and integral to the plot, and what makes his character so intriguing. I don't know. I've never seen this actor. He was fine. He was in it for maybe 5 minutes. He did nothing. None of his motivations were elaborated on. It was boring. So, but in the David Lynch film, it's Dean Stockwell, and Dean Stockwell is always great, and he's always weird and interesting. And David Lynch gave Dr. Yui, my favorite character, more screen time and more depth and a better arc. Going with David Lynch on that one, for sure. This movie ruined Dr. Yui. For shame. Jessica, both good. I don't know the name of the actresses who played either of them, but they're both great. You didn't really learn much about Jessica in either movie. Both Dune films are sausage fests. But they're both actresses were good. I'll give that one a tie. Chani? What, Zendaya versus Sean Young? Whatever, I don't care. I'll give it to Zendaya because she's not Sean Young. Hey, Sean Young was also in Blade Runner. She specializes in appearing in boring movies that nobody cares about. Then we've got Duncan Idaho. He barely appeared in the David Lynch film. I think it was Richard Jordan, who was fine, a good-looking man, good actor. He barely appeared. Jason Momoa was Duncan Idaho in this one, and he stole the whole fucking movie. He was having fun, and every time he was on screen, I was having fun. He was an interesting character. And when I first heard of his casting as Duncan Idaho, who in the first Dune, he's interesting, but he goes on, I don't want to spoil anything about these novels, and you're never going to read, but his character becomes arguably the greatest character in sci-fi history. He's up there. Duncan Idaho is up there. I don't know if Jason Momoa lives up to how great this character would become if they actually make like 10 of these fucking movies, which they never will. They're not gonna make a God Emperor of Dune movie with a Jabba the Hutt ruling the universe, which would be interesting if they did. But Jason Momoa was great. Jason Momoa and Oscar Isaac both had charisma and just breathed life into these characters that I love. They both did really well. Everybody else was just bland. Charlotte Rampling was the Reverend Mother Gaius Mohayim, or whatever her name is, and I think she wore she was barely recognizable. I knew that she was playing her, which is great casting. And she was in the movie for maybe like 2 minutes. Raban, the Beast Raban, who's played by Batista in this one. I was excited to see that because Raban is nobody's favorite character from the novel. But I was like, oh, if they're casting Batista, they're going to do something with this character. And they didn't do anything with this character. Maybe in the sequel. Batista shows up. He's got like 2 scenes. He yells. He looks cool. I have no idea who played Raban in the first film. Some guy who did nothing and is completely forgettable. So I'll give the nod to Batista for that one. Fade Rausa, who is not in this film, but is played by Sting. Sting in a diaper in the David Lynch film. I'm going to give the nod to this one. The no actor who played him was better than Sting in a diaper.
Lovely fate.
And then there is the Emperor, who was, Jose Ferrer in the David Lynch film. The Emperor does not show up in this one. So I'm giving it to Jose Ferrer, who's always great. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen is, what's something McMillan. That guy was great and evil and hamming it up in the David Lynch film. And this one is a more subdued, subtle performance by the always good Stellan Skarsgård. Both are great. I'll call this one a tie. Very different performances, but both very good. Stellan Skarsgård didn't have much screen time, and you didn't really learn much about his plan or his motivations, which is what I'll say about this whole movie. You don't really learn anything, and it's just kind of a bunch of stuff you're watching happening. And if you've read the book, maybe you'll remember some of it. If you haven't, you'll be completely lost. The book actually has like a glossary in the back and and different appendices with like that explain like there's like a encyclopedia of terms, and when you read this book, it's like the first it's like Kol Wahad. What does Kol Wahad mean? Okay. The Spacing Guild. What's the Spacing Guild? Okay. Skittily. Skittily is not in this book. He's in the sequel. The cinematography is great. The special effects are great. It left me cold. I felt nothing. What can you say about a movie? And this is the most damning thing I can say about any movie. After I watched it, I was so underwhelmed. I rewatched the David Lynch 1984 Dune. It's like that's not normal. That's not a normal. That's not like what a normal, well-adjusted person reacts to a film. Nobody willingly wants to watch the 1984 David Lynch Dune. I'm not gonna call it a bad movie because it probably wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't a good movie. It wasn't a good adaptation. The action was really good. There's a set piece right in the middle of the movie where the Harkonnens and the Atreides fight, and it's a big battle, and it's a spectacle, and it's really entertaining and exciting. And that's about it. Oh yeah, and then Stilgar. I forgot to mention Stilgar, the leader of the sect of the Fremen that they encounter, played by Everett McGill in the Lynch film. Miscast, but fun to watch. And in this one, he's played by, what's his name? The Spanish guy from No Country for Old Men, Chigurh. I can't remember the actor's name. I apologize. He's a very good actor. The Spanish guy. And he plays Stilgar as a Spanish guy. And he's probably better than Everett McGill. But neither film really landed the Fremen for me, which is maybe the most important thing to land. If you read, there's a whole section about like the creation of the Fremen, and it's written by an artist who was hired to like visually come up with like the concept, like how they look, and he based it on like he really followed like because Frank Herbert like based them on like the Mujahideen like warriors and like in the Muslim culture and other things from the Middle East, and there's like Swahili words in their language and things like that. And David Lynch cast a bunch of white guys like Everett McGill as the Fremen, And Denis Villeneuve, whatever his name is, he just cast a bunch of brown people. Just a random collection of not white people. You got the Spanish guy, you got Zendaya, you got like some black people. Just, it was weird. Like, because before we really got to the Fremen, they had all this like visuals that made it look like Middle Eastern culture. And like, so I thought like, oh, they're gonna go for it, but they didn't go for it. They just cast a bunch of like people who aren't white, which I thought it was really kind of embarrassing. And I don't want to accuse them of racism, but I think this French guy has just never seen a Middle Eastern person before, so he just cast Zendaya and Sugar to be uncle and niece, even though, and he wasn't even like, because she sounded like an American, and then he's got like his Spanish accent, which he wasn't even, and then there's like African Americans, or maybe even just African. It was just like, have some kind of consistency with your ethnic group. You can't just, here's a gaggle of people who aren't white. I thought it was pathetic and offensive. I'm going to say it. It was an offensive way to portray the Fremen. And I question their choices. And if the next film is going to be all about the Fremen, it makes my skin crawl to think of how inappropriate the way they portray this group of people is going to be, because this was just embarrassing. It reminds me of like when you'd watch like a Western from the 50s and they just like paint a white guy brown and say, that's a Native American. Or they just hire like a Mexican and puts feathers on his head. Say, that's a Native American. That was how embarrassing their portrayal of the Fremen was. Pathetic. Brought me completely out of the movie and almost made me hate it. There you go. I'm going to keep rereading the novels because they're interesting. And maybe I'll do a review and my thoughts. Some of the things that just bothered me about the novel, that have been bothering me lately. And I have nobody else to talk to, so I'll talk to my phone instead. But yeah, I don't know. Check it out. It's not a bad film. It's perfectly fine. Borderline offensive. It ends on a cliffhanger, I guess. Because it's really, they just split the novel in two. And this movie is the first half of the novel. And I can't imagine a lot of people are going to care. I can't imagine a lot of people are going to see this and be like, I got to see what happens next. Because it's so poorly told. And it's just like so thin in terms of character and plot. It's just not interesting unless you've read the novel. There's Xena. Rest in peace. I recommend not watching any versions of Dune and just read the novel. And then maybe read Dune Messiah, because it's kind of interesting. And if you really love Dune Messiah, check out Children of the Dune. And if that one will just probably make you tear your hair out. And if for some reason you like Children of Dune and you want to try God Emperor of Dune, it's worth reading just because this is the most insane fucking novel ever written. It's sort of like Glengarry Gone Ross if there were all slugs in the future talking to clones of Jason Momoa. And they keep killing him and bringing him back. But yeah, weird stuff. Weird, wild stuff. There's just so much interesting stuff. Like the world building in the novel is just not here. My friend CH watched it last night too, and he was, because he knows I like the book, and he was asking me a bunch of questions like, why do they use shields if they don't work? It's a good question. They work in the novel, and they go into it. They go into why are they using swords? That's all in the novel instead of the lasers that they have. It's in the books. It's not explained in the movie. There's like what's going on with the feudal system. It's all in the books. It's not in the movie. What's going on with the emperor and the baron, and why are they feuding with the Atreides? It's all in the books. It's not in the movie. It's basically like a visual companion to the novel. So if you like the novel, check it out. Because visually it's kind of cool. Although I kind of like the visuals of the David Lynch film better. I definitely like the music from the David Lynch film. The music from the David Lynch film was awesome. So yeah, my recommendation, if you had to choose between either film, I don't know, watch Home Alone or something, because that's a really funny movie, and it's a lot of fun. They're remaking that on Disney Plus, and I watched the trailer last night. It's some fat British kid, and the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is either playing Joe Pesci or Daniel Stern. It doesn't look good. If somebody comments down below, if somebody has made it this long in this fucking review in comments, yeah, watch that Home Alone remake, and I will make Jester do it too. If somebody comments, you and Jester should watch that terrible looking Home Alone movie, we'll do it. Anyway, have a great night or day, life, year. Just be great to each other and be great to yourself. Love yourself, because you're worth it, and you're better than these movies. We don't have to watch these movies. Yeah. What just happened? Anyway, okay. Thanks for watching. Bye.